thank you for making the time to be here and to listen. And of course, thank you to all the sponsors. I could have prepared something, but I don't work that way. And so what I'd like to do is tell you a story. And it's the story of a group of kids who were inspired by Arab Spring movements in other countries, and they dared to write on the walls of their school, "Ash-Sha'ab yurid isqat al-nizam," or the people want the overthrow of the regime. And this became a call to action across Syria. With the non-violent movement, the first 8 months in Syria, people were calling for dignity, democracy, equality for all Syrians, freedom for all Syrians. And this was regardless of our background, our ethnic background, our religious beliefs, our political beliefs. And as you know, the Assad regime responded with military force. And as the regime's response continued to escalate, people began to take up weapons in self-defense. This is a normal thing. It is very normal for people to take up weapons when their wives and their sisters and their daughters are being gang-raped by regime militias in the streets. It is very normal when children, as young as 10 years old, are being arrested for saying the word freedom, or when their bodies are being returned to their families. The Assad regime capitalized on the self-defense aspect of it and increasingly militarized what became a conflict, until they issued an amnesty to the Islamists who were in jail and released them into the streets, into the peaceful protests, and in many cases gave them weapons and said, "Go." And thus began the radicalization that we see or we hear about in Syria. So as part of this story, a lot of us, particularly those in the West who were lobbying on behalf of Syria and the Syrian revolution, were told, "We don't know what you want. We don't know what the Syrian people want. We know what you don't want, or what you say you don't want. You don't want tyranny, or dictatorship, or cronyism, or corruption, or torture. What do you want?" And we thought the best way to answer this was to do a survey in Syria of what we want. And so FREE-Syria, with the LCC, coordinated a massive effort of 100 activists through training, through work, through coaching, through dialogue, to survey more than 50,000 Syrians all across Syria, in every governorate, across socioeconomic and political and religious spectrums, and in the neighboring countries. 50,000 people, more than 50,000, answered a set of 18 pretty simple questions about what they want for the future of their country. We were not asking whether or not people wanted Bashar al-Assad's head. We weren't asking if they want a Ba'athist government. We were asking some basic questions. We asked the questions objectively. We allowed people the space to answer in any way they wanted to. We were prepared sometimes to hear answers we didn't like, with the commitment that the end result would be a statement of the will of the people. When we finished the surveys, we did an analysis, and wherever we saw agreement of 50% or more from the respondents, we put aside into what is the Freedom Charter. And I think you either have copies or they're available. So this 2-page, really less than 2 pages of principles are extremely simple and broad-based, but they are a reflection of what the Syrian people want. For us, this document is a statement written by the people, for the people. It speaks to a dream of a future Syria bound by the rule of law, a Syria where one can use one's ethnic language, one can express their religious tendency or preference or belief in any manner that he or she would like to. one where women are equal partners in rebuilding their country. This Freedom Charter is an empowerment initiative. It's empowering of youth, the youth movement that needs to be the architect of a future free Syria. It's empowering of women who can start participating politically rather than being on the sidelines or in advisory committees. It's empowering for those Syrians who have taken to the streets again and again and again, and most recently with the beginning of the cessation of hostilities. So this Freedom Charter initiative, now that we have the more than 50,000 signatures, is taking on a new dimension. And we are asking Syrians around the world, inside Syria and everywhere else, to read it, debate it, and if they agree with it, sign it. Because when we are 50,000 respondents and 20,000 signatories, we don't yet represent Syria. When we are 2 million signatories to the Freedom Charter, we can now say, here's what the Syrian people want. And in the political negotiations, where the Syrian voice is absent, we can hand this to Mr. Stefan de Mistura. We can hand this to those waging a proxy war. We can hand this to those people who do not believe in the revolution. And we can show this to those who say it is a civil war. Because fundamentally, the issue in Syria is that the people dared to stand up and say no to the dictator. And the response was military. So for us, for me, for my group, it is a revolution. And that's really my message. And I am ready for any dialogue, questions, or debate.